All right, guys, we are back with video number 4 on weight loss made simple. In the first video, we talked about, good expectations, setting realistic goals. The second one, we talked about choosing your form of restriction because in order to lose weight, there has to be some form of intake control. Okay, we have to limit it somehow. And we always want to find the most sustainable and easy to fit into your lifestyle restriction, okay? Number 3, we talked about eating nutrient-dense foods, meaning choosing unprocessed whole foods over processed foods and doing our best to choose foods that have the most nutrients in them to fuel our body. Okay, remember, you are what you eat. Literally, on a molecular level, you are what you eat. So we want to choose the best we can, not thinking of food as fun and entertainment, but thinking it as fuel for thriving. And then the fourth one goes back to diet as well. We want to focus on protein intake. Okay, protein has been a little demonized recently, and people are acting like, protein from bugs and protein from plants and other things are equal to animal-based proteins. And I'm gonna be honest, you can live a happy life relatively on plant-based proteins. They're definitely not as effective, and you definitely will not thrive as you would on animal proteins, but you can live fine. There are plenty of people that do it. If you're from India, there are millions of people in India who are vegetarians, and people get along. Now, when I talk about weight loss made simple, the choices and the principles I'm going to give you are going to be based on being the most optimal that you can. Now, I would say plant-based anything is not as optimal as animal-based. Well, a couple of reasons. The amino acid profiles in plants are inferior to animal proteins. There's a few in there specifically like lysine, leucine, and methionine, amino acids that are really in low supply in plant foods and really high in animal foods. And we need those 3 amino acids specifically to build muscle mass, to turn over new protein cells, and things like that. So at the end of the day, animals are best. And when you think about plants in another sense, the thing that makes plants important for most people is the fiber, and the fiber is the part that's indigestible, okay? The issue is all of the amino acids and proteins are held in that fiber, which is indigestible. So that means even if you are eating plants for your protein, you're not getting all of the protein that's in there. Whereas like with animals, like if you eat a steak, you're getting 90% of those amino acids into your bloodstream. Okay, so we want to focus on protein per meal. Protein is one of those things that we as humans need for bone, hair, organs, skin. Like, you need it for so many different functions. And then we also use amino acids to create enzymes which have other functions in the body. So just like we have essential amino acids, meaning we have to get them from outside of the body. We don't make them. We get the majority of that from animal foods: steak, pork, fish, dairy, full fat dairy usually. And then we also have essential fatty acids, right? Which we don't create ourselves. So we have to get those from somewhere, and we get those from our food. And those two are best found in animal proteins. The big thing here is for weight loss. If we can focus on our protein intake, 1, it protects our muscle mass. Remember, we talked about that. Losing weight is fine, but losing muscle mass is not. So the more protein we have, up to a point, we protect muscle mass. The best way to protect muscle mass is to eat protein and exercise or lift weights. But for now, we're just going to talk about make sure you're focusing on having some form of protein at every meal. Somewhere between 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal. That doesn't mean 30 or 40 grams of a piece of meat, because a piece of meat is not pure protein. So roughly, if we're thinking in grams, you're looking at like 150 to 200 grams of meat per meal. That might be too much. You might need just 100 grams. That's fine. But if you're focusing on it, what it's going to do is going to protect your muscle mass. It's going to make you feel full, especially if the cuts of meat are leaner. Like, just eat a dry chicken breast and tell me if you're hungry. And then 2, it doesn't speed up metabolism in any way, but what it does is it has a caloric cost to it. So you don't burn more calories, you just utilize more calories when digesting protein, okay? So on an energy level, it's just a better choice than carbs or fats. So we want to focus on them every meal, okay, to make sure that we are building muscle, staying lean, and staying full, okay? Protein is a big deal. It's been said that we're not over fat in America, we are under muscled, which there's some truth to that. I would say many of of us are bigger than we should be, but the majority of us are far weaker when it comes to muscle mass than is optimal for our health, okay? So focus on protein at every meal, okay? No matter how many meals you choose, no matter what your restriction is, you don't get to restrict protein because you need it. You can't live without it. You can restrict fat to some extent, and you can restrict carbohydrates to 0 because there is no essential carbohydrate. So you can live fine on no carbohydrates whatsoever, but you cannot live on 0 protein or 0 fat. You will fall apart slowly. We don't want that at all. We want you to live and thrive and do what God's called you to do, okay? Number 4, focus on protein at every meal.